Hello everyone. It is the beginning of December, so I am doing my reading wrap-up for the month of November. So let's start with a few stats. So November was an okay month. It was a little bit better mentally reading-wise for me than October was, but I didn't get as much read because I was sick for at least 2 weeks of it. I'm still recovering from this cold. So I ended up reading 7 books, which worked out to 2,613 pages. So it's not my worst page count, but also not my best. So I did have one soft DNF, and that was A Mathematical Nature Walk by John A. Adam. And I just soft DNF this one right now because it's one of those ones that you can only read a few pages at a time. And so it's going to take me a long time to read, and I'm just not really in the mood right now. But I'm keeping it by my bed so I can continue reading it as I go and see where, because I do want to finish it. But I'm just not going to be reading it actively. So that's my soft DNF. And then my percentage of rereads so far for the year is 14%, which is good for me because, like I've mentioned before, I am a chronic rereader. And so I tend to, I used to just reread books all the time. So I'm trying to read more new books that I haven't read before and do less of the rereading. So that's a pretty good percentage. My average rating this month was 4.2 stars, which is better than last month. So that was a good improvement for me. I ended up reading 6 novels and 1 nonfiction, and 4 were from the library and 3 were owned. So I've been taking out a lot of books from the library lately, rather than just reading the books off my shelf. I do need to get back to reading more books off my shelf again, but I'm at about 50-50. So overall for the year, so half of the books that I've been reading have been from the library and half have been from my own books. This month they were all physical books, other than like the ones I finished were all physical. I do have a couple of ebooks that I'm in the middle of, but all the ones I finished were physical. 5 of them were actually series reads this time, and although I started 3 new series, I actually completed 2 series as well. So I'll talk about those in a minute. I read 4 new authors that I had never read before. And so that was my stats. So this time I'm going to tell you about the books from the highest rated to the lowest, because last month I did the opposite. So I'm just going to set my little notebook over here. And so I ended up with 2 5-star books last month, and they were, the first one that I read was Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune. I'll put it up here because I don't have the copy with me because it was from the library. And I gave that one 5 stars. It is the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea, which I read earlier this year and absolutely adored. So reading Somewhere Beyond the Sea was another just really excellent book. For me, that world is very much, it feels like coming home. It was a world that I just loved. I loved the characters so much. And so coming back into that world was just like coming home again. And I really, really loved it. The House in the Cerulean Sea follows a guy named Linus Baker. He works for the department in charge of magical youth in this world. And he's a caseworker at the beginning of the book. And so his job is to go around to these orphanages where these magical children are raised and make sure that everything's on the up and up and nothing is going wrong there, and that the children are safe and that the people are safe, the non-magical people. So that's his job. And he ends up getting sent out to an orphanage on this island in the Cerulean Sea to look into a situation where the most dangerous magical children are kept. And he goes out there to determine whether the place is safe, whether it's too dangerous to have all these children together, that sort of thing. And when he gets there, he meets the orphanage master, whose name is Arthur Parnassus. And the two of them develop a relationship, and he gets to know the children. And it's a very, very heartwarming book. And then when the second one started, it was like just going back into it, because it picked up right after the last one left off. And so you end up, you're following Arthur and Linus again, and you get more of Arthur's backstory, which is really interesting in the second book. And there's a lot of other things going on. And I loved the way it ended. I'm thinking it's probably just a duology because of the way it ended. And if it is, I'm perfectly happy with that. I will reread the duology multiple times. So that was one of the series that I finished, or finished up to the point when it's released. So the other 5-star book that I read this month was another completion of a series. And that was, I read Exiles by Jane Harper. This is the third and final book in the Aaron Falk trilogy. And he is one of my absolute favorite characters. I read the other two this year as well. So I finished this whole trilogy this year, which is, if you know me at all, you know that I am not very good at finishing trilogies. I tend to read the first book, maybe the second book, and I never get to the third book because I'm always worried about how things are going to end. And one of my goals for next year is going to be to finish more trilogies and that sort of thing. But I did finish this one. I just loved it so much. So this series follows a man named Aaron Falk. It's set in Australia. Aaron is a federal investigator in Melbourne. And in this one, he is going out to visit a friend because he's going to be named the godfather of their son. But a year prior to the story, this friend, a friend of their whole family, had gone missing and left her baby behind, and nobody knows what happened to her. And so while Aaron is there again for this, for the ceremony and everything for the godparents, he starts looking into what happened to this woman. And that's kind of the premise of the book. You also get further, in Aaron's life, his story arc that began in the first book continues on in this one and ends the way I was hoping it would. So I just love this book. I love this whole trilogy. I'm going to read it multiple times. I love Jane Harper's writing. She's one of my new favorite authors, and I'm going to just read everything she's written. So that was another one that I read and I just loved. Then I actually read 2 4.5-star books. Now, I don't have either of them with me right now because one was from the library and one was my own, but I lent it to my mom after to read. So the first one that I read was When the Going Gets Tough, Still More Adventures from a Country Vet by Dr. Dave Perrin. And I had actually chosen this one for my October TBR through the game, but hadn't quite finished it. But I hadn't quite finished it in October, so I finished it in the beginning of November. And it follows a country vet in British Columbia named Dr. Dave Perrin. This is actually the 5th book in his series of Tales of the Country Vet kind of thing. And I don't have the other ones. I haven't read them, but you can read them as standalones as well. And I just really, really loved the story in general. The characters were great. I always enjoyed those sort of vet stories. Ever since when I was younger, when I was a kid, I read all like the James Herriot vet books. I have a bunch of them. And I always loved those kind of stories, the adventures of vets out in the boonies sort of thing. And so I really did enjoy that one. I gave it 4.5 stars. I didn't have any real issues with it. It just wasn't, like an all-time favorite book. So I didn't get 5, but it was definitely a fun read, entertaining, and I love stories with animals. So, and then the other 4.5 star was one of my surprises again this year, and that was Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I am not normally a romance reader. I have never been into romance at all, but I decided it was actually a vlog that I'm going to be posting soon. And I'll link to it when I do get it posted, because I finally finished all the things I needed to do for it, where I'm trying different genres, and at this time I was trying romance, and that's one of the books that I read for that. So I'm not going to say too much about it because I will talk about it more in the romance vlog. But I actually really enjoyed it and gave it 4.5 stars. So that was a surprise for me. Then I read one 4-star book, which I don't have with me either because I took it back to the library already. And that was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. And that one again is for another vlog. I'm doing a vlog where I'm reading a bunch of books that involve writers or writing or books. So that one was one that I read for that. Oscar, come here, baby. So Yellowface was one that I read for that. And I found it okay. I'm not going to say too much about it until I do that vlog. It wasn't my favorite book because I don't really, I'm discovering that I'm not real big on reading a story where the main character is the anti-hero or villain. I just found them absolutely insufferable to be in the brain of. So yeah, but I'll talk more about that one when I post that vlog, which will be sometime here in December. I did read a 3.5 star, which was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I really, really, really wanted to love this one because everybody else loves it, and I thought I would be a cozy fantasy sort of person. But I'm not going to talk too much about this one either because I do have a vlog coming out where I read this one. But just suffice it to say, I don't think cozy fantasy is my genre. I'm the kind of person who, if you've watched my channel at all, you know that I like books like set in the Viking era, medieval times, that sort of stuff. So I like, the sword fighting type of books. And so I'm discovering as I start reading a little bit that I will very much, I think, prefer fantasies that involve swords and sorcery versus just something nice and cozy. But I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I did give it 3.5 stars, and it was fun to read, but not exactly my genre, and that's kind of why it got lower rating from me. And then the last one that I finished this month was Cold Fire by Dean Koontz. This was one off my shelf. It was one of his written in the early 90s. And I'm not going to say too much about this one either because this is part of my Read It or Unhaul It challenge. I did give it 3 stars though. And I will talk more about that in that vlog when I get it posted this month. I will put a link to that when I get it done, down in the comments. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It was just okay. It wasn't anything special to me. So that's the 7 books that I actually finished. I did also have a few that I'm in the middle of. So I thought I'd just mention them. From my TBR game last month, I had The Pale Horseman by Bernard Cornwell. And that one I am at page 246, so I'm a little over halfway through it. And I was hoping to finish it on the weekend, but I wasn't able to. I'm going to do some more reading tonight. But I was hoping to finish it yesterday, and I never quite got there. I've also started Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, which was also from my November TBR game. And I'm really enjoying it so far, but I am actually only 44 pages into it. So I'm not super far into this one yet, but I am liking the writing style so far. So I think I'm going to enjoy it. And I am right around halfway through The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. Jury's still out on this one. Not sure what I think of it. This is also going to be for that writing vlog, which you'll see in December. So I will let you know what I think of that when I finish it. Then I also have 2 ebooks on the go, and I like to always have an ebook on my phone. I take them out from Libby. I like to always have them on my phone so that when I'm waiting at the doctor's office or, having to, sit somewhere and wait for someone, I have something to read if I don't bring my physical book with me. And so I do have 2 on the go right now. They are Powers and Thrones, A New History of the Middle Ages by Dan Jones. I really enjoy Dan Jones's writing. He is a British historian. And this is actually my first book by him that I'm reading. My friend just loves him, and she recommended him to me. So I happened to find this one on Libby, and I picked it up. I do think I am going to want to buy it and read the physical copy eventually, because I would love to be able to flip back and forth to maps and things that I know are in the physical book. So, but I am about 11% into that one, but it's like a 1,000 or 1,200 page book. So. And then the other one that I'm reading is called Woman Captain Rebel, The Extraordinary True Story of a Daring Icelandic Sea Captain by Margaret Wilson. And that one follows a 19th century woman in Iceland who ended up being a sea captain and adventurer, which was a rare thing for a woman back then. And I'm only about 14% into that one as well. It's going okay so far. I'm not overly enamored by the style of the author, but it's an interesting story. So partially through that one as well. And those ones will just keep going for as long as I end up taking to read them. So that is my little reading wrap up for the month of November. Like I say, I didn't get as many books read as I was hoping to, but I was sick for 2 weeks, so, and I still am a little bit. So, yeah, so I will sign off and let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. And let me know how your November reading went. What was your favorite book that you read in November? And make sure you give the video a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, because that helps me out. And I will see you guys soon on my next video. Bye.